Hello and welcome to possibly the second or third episode in a series that we're going to be doing on the subject of velology, which is the collecting of tax discs. Velology, vehicle excise licensing, ology afterwards. A little bit like philately. I'm afraid I don't know what that stands for, but this is a hobby very similar to collecting stamps, I suppose, except this is stamps for cars. A lot of people very often ask, why on earth do you want to collect something like that? I suppose it's the same as any other selection of cards, stamps or whatever. It's a challenge to see if you can get a set, and also there are many rarities that you find along the way. Also, in many cases, these are the only historical references left of the vehicle itself. The vehicles are long since extinct. And as you'll see through the pages as we work our way through this collection here, incidentally, we're going to go through the collection in this episode from the years of 1961, hopefully right through to the end of 2015, when they finished in September of that year. Okay, let's take you on to the subject. 1961. Not all of us were about then. Apparently in March 61 was the launch of the Jaguar E-Type, a sports car capable of reaching speeds of 150 miles an hour, was launched at the Geneva Motor Show. Well, of course, at this time also we saw a very new selection of tax discs, and this was the first year where we started to issue tax discs on a 4-monthly basis and a 12-monthly basis. It had previously come from, and you'll see in some previous videos, it had previously come from issues of March, June, September and December as quarterlies, and then annuals in December. So they were all issuing them in series every 3 months, and we now switch to a period of one every 4 months and one every 12 months. As a result of this, no issue was issued in December, no quarterly of 1960, as we went over to 1961 where we start. And as a result of this switch, many of these discs are rare. Indeed, many of the collectors don't even know that some of them exist at all, particularly the early months of January. Now, to me, this is probably one of the best looking tax discs that was ever issued, really. The abbreviation of the month itself, just the last 2 figures of the year. You'll see on the top here the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, O for October, N for November, D for December. Okay, you'll see the issue, 4 monthly for all of these, and there's a 12 monthly at the end there. Now, it's worth noting with the tax discs, these are when the actual tax disc expired, not when they were issued. If we look at one here, you'll see the issue date on the stamp at a post office. That was one particular one was issued in Swansea, 16th of January, 1961. It runs for 12 months and expires in 61. Okay. Now, they were produced still for series of goods, bicycles or motorcycles, if you like. Hackney was a class of taxation. There's specialist taxation as well. This particular one's a mowing machine. There were all kinds of things like for lighthouses, lighting. We'll come on to those perhaps in another video. Private, you'll see private stamped on the most of these. That represents a private vehicle. It could either be stamped on the disc itself or it could be put independently. As you can see from most of these were written at the post office. Okay, so private meaning private vehicle. Now, immediately these came out, as the thoughts of when any vehicle is taxed, there always a thought of trying to deceive the people that were checking these things. These were affixed on the windscreen, left-hand side of the vehicle, in the bottom half of the vehicle itself. And they became a very quick target of people who wished to falsify tax discs. Here's one such early example. That you can probably see one somebody's painted it out in January with a view to trying already to deceive the authorities. And here's one that's rather interesting, and you can see it's just dropped there. This particular thing was actually chopped in half, actually due to expire in March 61. Someone found a disc that was slightly newer, perhaps from another vehicle that wasn't needed on the road, chopped it in half and stuck that on the top. So immediately the authorities had to think about a way that they could get around that. We move on to 62, and this is when the authorities decided to do something about it, but my guess is that they'd already had a lot of the discs already printed out, and they did it with what we call a shadow date. If we check on the August 62 here, you can see you've got a date there, August 62, then you've got a date of a shadow underneath here. Up until January to July, there's no shadow underneath each of these discs here, okay? But they did actually start doing it on the 4 monthly discs, and you'll see a section over here, January 62 on a 4 monthly disc, where they finally started doing the shadow underneath. So we've got the shadows underneath, dates repeated twice, hopefully to try and stop people cutting them in half and defrauding the authorities for tax. So the collector itself, it means there's 2 sets to collect in 62. There's a non-shadow date through to July, and there's a shadow date, again, January through to July. I filled these in because there's 2 sets of them, if you like. Vehicles are rather interesting if you look at these. What was going on in 62? Ford Motor Company launches the Cortina, family saloon costing £573. And that's equivalent to 12,500 in 2023. Also in October of 62, the Beatles make their first televised appearance on Granada Television's Northwest local news programme, People and Places. I guess most people, when they look through tax discs, they look for their birth dates. That's the first thing they look for, because that's what's of interest to them. It's worth remembering that if you find your date, that's the date that these discs expired, not, as I say, the birth date. The birth date is on the post office stamp on the bottom of the disc there. That's quite a challenge to find your own birth date written on a tax disc, I'll tell you that. I will briefly just skirt back to how these discs appeared. They were put in a full piece of paper, if you like, a square rectangular piece of paper. This is the selvage that goes around the tax disc itself. This particular one is cancelled. You're expected then to sort of push these out here and put it in the disc on the windscreen. Also, the writing on the back of the disc change. Long and short of it is about, if you sell the vehicle, you could actually return these tax discs to the authorities, and they would give you the amount of tax that hadn't been used back on them. And it's all about a note about what day you can do it on of the month. Okay, you'll find to some collectors that the tax disc in its selvage is worth a little bit more than the one that's been taken out of it. But sometimes these never made it to the vehicle. They were kept in books and kind of things and just stored in log books. Right, so that's the selvage. We then move on to 1963, and as I'm sort of producing this in 2023, it's all those people coming up to the grand old age of 60 this year. These discs might be of interest to them. 1963, Vauxhall launches the new Viva, a small family saloon similar to the size of BMC's 11,000. And just out of interest, August 63 was the Great Train Robbery, which took place in Buckinghamshire. Now, I might bring you on to some of the particular vehicle makes in this. You can see Austin, Humber, Volkswagen. Some are printed, some are handwritten. I don't think there's any particular rare vehicles in that one. So that's the 60s. Let's keep moving onwards. I must tell you, it's taken a long time to get the collection to this particular standard, and it usually means collecting a disc, perhaps collecting another one like it, and selling the next one on, keeping the best one each time. And eventually you kind of end up ones with probably I prefer the ones that have private printed on them. They just usually look a little bit better. The printed ones are usually produced by licensing authorities. So they, I see that, yeah, for example, Hampshire County Council licenses, Kent County Council. The handwritten ones are more likely to have been printed at a post office. Okay, we're looking at a section of there, Austin, Morris, Wolsey, nice little Rolls Royce there. Wonder if that ever made it to the vehicle or was just kept in the glove box somewhere, who knows. Another Rolls Royce. Pretty interesting registration plates number. The registration plates is what brought me into this particular field. You can look up the registration numbers, sometimes through the DVLA, Swansea, see if the vehicle's still in existence. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they might be taxed and still on the road or even off-road. If they can't find it, it means the vehicle's probably been scrapped. Okay. What happened in 64? Donald Campbell sets the world speed record on water at 276.33 miles an hour on Dumblejung Lake in Austria. That was in December. Moving on to 1965. In 1965, Corgi Toys introduced the all-time best-selling model car, James Bond's Aston Martin DB5 from the film Goldfinger. In January, Sir Winston Churchill dies, aged 90 at Chartwell, his Kent home of more than 40 years. 1965. Wow. Again, a selections of Ford, Daimlers. There's a July section there, an HE. I think that's quite a rare vehicle in itself. Clino, again a rare vehicle. The other one's fairly popular. I haven't really, some people collect for different reasons. Some people just collect one from each year. Some people actually collect rare makes. Some people even go down the road of collecting all private vehicles, all hackney vehicles, and all goods vehicles, and that builds up a very vast collection. Very difficult to do over many years. Okay, moving on to 1966, could be the birth dates of some of you out there. 1966, we all know that was one particular good year. We all know what happened in July 66. England won the World Cup, didn't they? Just for your reference, it was in July. But did you know also in January that the Action Man toy action figure was launched in the UK? March, we had the theft of the football Jules Rimet trophy whilst on exhibition in London. July, obviously, we beat West Germany 4-2. So sometimes July 66 will be a more popular or more valuable disc from that year. As you know, people collect football programmes, football tickets from the World Cup series there. Again, which are rarities, which are more common? You probably noticed by the serial numbers of some of these, people like to be able to buy their tax discs majority of the time so they expired in December. So a lot of people will buy car taxed in January. No, not so many people wanted to buy it in November because, of course, it was the expense of dishing out something before Christmas. Also, you will find people would like to keep, some people who had classic cars would only put their vehicles on the road during summertime. So very often you'll find that the summertime discs are more common, the December discs are more common, but things like sort of November, February, October, they're not quite so popular because not so many people bought tax during those particular time periods. Right, a little jump there. We'll have to switch books a minute. So we move on. We move on to January 67. In 67, General Post Office introduced the Machin series of definitive stamps. The Arnold Machin design will be one of the most reproduced works of art in history, with approximately 320 billion copies produced. And in December, the Concorde supersonic aircraft was unveiled in Toulouse, France. What vehicles have we got here? Triumphs, Lanchesters, Clinos again, Ford, Lanchester again. Back of the disc remains unchanged. Looks very similar to what it was before. It's worth remembering some people buy classic cars and they have what they feel is a very rare disc that's perhaps come along with the car. Always check the back of the disc. If it's plain, the chances are all you've got is a photocopy. Okay, there will always be some information printed on the back of the disc itself. Some people try to sell discs in good faith. They think they've got the genuine article, when in fact they haven't. If the back of the disc is blank, it's a photocopy. Okay, moving on to 68. January 68, the Ford Escort car is introduced to replace the Anglia. In September, the Japanese car maker Nissan launches its Datsun badge range of cars onto the British market. And in December, the official opening of the first phase of the Royal Mint's new Llantrisant plant in South Wales. Lovely 1968. Nice MG there, Austin Healey, Fords, Triumphs. Okay, so again, on the subject of classic cars, if you are buying a tax disc for your classic vehicle, which many people do, a lot of people make the mistake of buying the disc for the month their vehicle was born, if you like, or sold from the garage. So if it was July 68, they will buy a tax disc with July 68 on it to try and indicate the year of the car. Well, indeed, it may indicate the year of the car, but if you had purchased your car in July 68, it would have a tax disc that either expires 4 months later, which would have been November 68, or 12 months later from 68, which would be July 69. So please remember that, classic car enthusiasts. You're buying a disc that shows the expiry of the tax you bought when the vehicle was first born. Okay, 1969, January, launch of the Ford Capri, a 4-seater sporting coupe designed to compete with the likes of MGB, and which Ford expects to become a top 10 seller in Britain. October, the new 7-sided 50p coin was introduced as a replacement for the 10-shilling note, to a mixed reception from the British public, with many people complaining that it's easy. That got interrupted by the cat. I had to get rid of them in a nice way, put them outside. Okay, so we're moving on to 1970. What should we know about 1970? The Mark III Ford Cortina goes on sale. At launch, a full range of models are offered, including 2-door and estate variants. Unlike previous models, this Cortina was developed as a Ford Europe model, sharing the floor plan with the similar German Ford Taurus. And in May of that same year, the government made 20 million loan available to help the financially troubled luxury car and aircraft engine manufacturer Rolls-Royce. Don't know if I've got any Rolls-Royce discs amongst that lot. Not amongst that lot, no. Okay, you see there's a certain amount of sun fading going on these discs here. The browns vary. And printing no doubt varied, but some of them will have been on a vehicle for 4 months, some of them will be on there a year. So sometimes it depends if we had a good summer or not. I know 76 is coming up, that was a good summer itself, and the discs are quite faded from then. Moving on to 71. These also were sort of quite troubled times, and I will show you a series of emergency discs in a minute that relates to strikes that we happen to have. Anyway, 1971 we're on to now. Decimalisation. 15th of February was decimalisation. UK and Republic of Ireland both switched to decimal currency. In May of that year, Jackie Stewart won the Monaco Grand Prix. May, got a Ford on that time. All Austin, Humbers, Fiats, that kind of thing. Okay, moving on to 72. A state of emergency is declared by Prime Minister as a result of the miners' strike. March. I want to talk to you about strikes now. If you just have a quick look at those discs there, particularly February 72, you'll see that come up in a minute. All these discs were produced and maybe printed in advance. When certain things happen, which I will explain to you in just a moment, I'm going to switch actually over to the what we call emergency discs now. We'll come back to 72 in a moment. Let's just switch over to the emergency discs, which are back here on this page here. Now, let me just explain about these two. You will have seen from the issues that we've looked at, June 71 at the top there is the regular issue that's been, but when they ran out of regular issues, they started to issue these. June 71 was the post office strike, and it happened from the 20th of Jan 71 and lasted 7 weeks. The strikers returned on the 8th of March 71, and this overlapped with the introduction of the decimal currency. Feb 72, you'll see at two occasions on there. This was the miners' strike. The miners' strike again lasted 7 weeks from the 9th of Jan 1972. The strikers returned on the 28th of Feb 72. Businesses and homes were without electricity, obviously no coal going to the power stations, no electricity generated. And as a result, people didn't have electricity for 9 hours a day. Because the miners has picketed the power stations. So there's a shortage of electricity, and this forced businesses to close as well. Okay, we move on a little bit to February 75. Again, a miners' strike. We'll go back to the other discs in this a little later. 9th of February 74, introduction of 3-day week to conserve electricity. This lasted from the 1st of Jan 74 to the 7th of March 74, but electricity restrictions remained in force for several weeks. And then this affected also September and October of 75, or 2 general elections took place as well. Now you probably see that the alternate, apart from the first issues of January 72 emergency discs, June 71, Feb 72 were both yellow. Then what happened is in 75 they alternated colours, stopped them being confused, stopped people using them from previous years, if you like. So pink to yellow. So we went from February 75 to pink to September 75 in yellow, and October 75 back to pink again. And these were issued in 4 months or 12 months according to what was needed. There were no other emergency discs issued after this particular point, so there's no yellow after 75. Okay, we go back to where we were. I believe we were getting on towards, we were 72, I believe. We'll move over to 1973. What happened in 73? Pink Floyd, The Dark Side of the Moon, one of rock's landmark albums, is released in the UK. July, the Isle of Man Post begins to issue its own postage stamps. And December, the speed limit on all roads, including motorways, was reduced to 50 miles an hour from 70 until further notice as a result of the oil crisis. Again, you'll notice the price of the tax increasing. You've got £25 for 12 months tax. 4 months tax is £9.15. If we go back, I'm just not sure how we've got to go back. That goes all the way back to £9.15, £25. I'm trying to remember when it changed. That looks like it in 69. We start getting some overstamped from 25 from 1710. So you will get periodic changes in taxes as different governments come in. General elections change things. 74. The Soviet car maker Lada, founded 4 years ago as a result of an enterprise by Italian automotive giant Fiat, begins selling cars in the UK. Its 1200 four-door saloon is based on the Fiat 124 and retails for £999, which is equivalent to £7,650 in 2023. And you'll be pleased to know, in November of 1974, McDonald's opens its first UK restaurant in Woolwich, southeast London. Anything of significance in the vehicles here? There's a Citroen there, which is quite unusual for January of May. People very often ask me, have you got a disc for a certain vehicle that they've got? It really is looking like a needle in a haystack, completely. If you're trying to buy a disc that's close to your own, you'll be lucky if you get one the right year, the right month, with the right make written on it. As for your right registration, it's just not going to happen. It really isn't. You look at the serial numbers at the top on some of these tax discs, and you'll begin to realise just how many exactly were issued. Okay, 1975. 1975. Jensen. This is Jensen, the luxury car maker, makes 700 of its employees redundant, cutting its workforce by 2/3. That's not good, is it? You'll see December 75 there is an electric vehicle, probably a milk float, I imagine, Smith's. Just a reminder, as most of you, that electric vehicles have been about an awful long time. In fact, right the way back probably to the turn of the century, it's nothing new about electric vehicles. Anything of note there? Possibly not. Okay, moving on to January 76, which we know had a lovely summer. In June of 76, British Leyland launches its new Rover SD1, a large rear-wheel drive 5-door hatchback featuring a 3.5 V8 Chrysler engine. And as we said, a warm summer, 3rd of July, the heat wave peaks with temperatures reaching 35.9 degrees C, and that was 96.6 degrees Fahrenheit in Cheltenham. Okay, while that was happening, in July, Ford launches a new 3-door hatchback, the Fiesta, its first front-wheel drive transverse engine production model, which is similar in concept to the Vauxhall Chevette and German car maker Volkswagen's new Polo. Apparently it would be built in several factories across Europe, including the Dagenham plant in Essex, where 3,000 jobs will be created, and continental sales begin later this year, although it will not go on sale in Britain until January 1977. Okay, still keeping this favourite sort of style and design of tax discs, which I love so much. Colours change through each year, obviously to indicate, obviously policemen, traffic wardens could go along and check the colours of discs. It was easier to tell the people that hadn't paid their tax because of the dates written all over the windscreen. Not so easy these days now. Okay, you've got to check it online. But what used to happen if vehicles were, I don't know, dumped outside your property for a while, didn't move for a while, all you had to do was do a walk past to see if it was taxed. If it wasn't, chances are it had been dumped. And you usually ended up reporting it to the authorities. Things like that don't happen these days anymore. Okay, 1977, a lovely blue band creation here. This June is Silver Jubilee celebrations are held in the United Kingdom to celebrate the 25 years of Queen Elizabeth II's reign, with a public holiday on the 7th of June. And the Star Wars fans out there will also know the much acclaimed Star Wars film, which has been a massive hit in the United States, is screened in British cinemas for the first time. That was December of that year. Now, what begins to happen now, we begin to see our first change happening with the tax disc, away from this, as I say, lovely design, which I think is probably the best that was ever produced. But we begin experimenting, and you'll see other discs in here. It happened in October, and we began experimenting with digital figures, if you like, indicating the end of the month, albeit 31 or 30, with the month again digitally expressed, and the year end 77. What happened in this crossover is that they continued to produce the old format discs up until May 78, when they stopped. After that, it went to digital format, which you'll see on the next page. So as a result, we've got two discs for October 77, November and December 77. This was done as a result of a trial they did in Wales. Wales actually went over to this system as far back as July 1970, and they were using this digital form since 1970. They'd already been using it a good 7 odd years, but it was decided to adopt it across the whole country as well. Okay, so if we go on to 1978, as I say, there's 2 lots to collect for this. It all went digital. And I'm not just on this one, the writing happens to be digitally printed, I appreciate that, but they were also handwritten as well. 78, 23 Ford car plants are closed across Britain due to strikes. November, many British bakeries imposed bread rationing after a baker's strike led to panic buying of bread. Panic buying, we know all about that, don't we? Hey. Okay, so again, you'll notice the different hues of discs themselves. Obviously, that October disc there doesn't look as though it went on a vehicle or it's a bike. It probably never got onto the bike itself. May have been kept in a book. But all the rest, notice there's a Datsun there on December. That doesn't crop out. And an Alfa Romeo in August. Farmers tax disc there as well. Up in, worth remembering, they were still around. They had to be taxed. Expensive tax that was. For 4 months, £37. Whereas your average family car could be covered for £18 for the year. Okay, we move on to 79. May, the price of milk increases more than 10% to 15 pence a pint. Well, I'll be blowed. In August, the Ford Cortina, Britain's best-selling car, enters its 5th generation when a restored version of the 1976 model is launched. Okay, so again, these have all been produced. Probably the printed ones come out from the local licensing offices. Again, the handwritten ones would have been issued at the post offices. So it's taken me a long time to get each particular one. Nice one there for an Aston Martin in August. Okay, that's 1979. Now we move on to 1980. Again, the digital format. Again, the reds, which tend to fade quite a bit. In 1980, in March, Radio Caroline, the pirate radio station, is forced to cease transmission when MV Mi Amigo, the ship on which it is based, runs aground and sinks off the Thames estuary. Apparently in September, Ford launches one of the most important new cars of the year, the 3rd generation Escort, which is a technological innovation in the small family car market, spelling the end of the traditional rear-wheel drive saloon in favour of the front-wheel drive hatchback, an estate that would follows a trend of the sector of the car which has been repeated all over Western Europe. It would go on to be Britain's best-selling car of the decade, starting from 1982. In December, poor old John Lennon is shot dead in New York. I appreciate most of you probably looking at your birth dates in here, not necessarily when John Lennon was killed, but it's still, there's looking at October 80 there, a Bruff Superior bicycle. Nice registration on July 1980, a GJ37, a Sunbeam. And March there is a rather unusual motorbike, I think. Okay, moving on to 81. And apparently in July 81 was the wedding of Charles, Princess of Wales and Lady Diana Spencer. It took place at St Paul's Cathedral. More than 30 million viewers watched the wedding on television, the second highest television audience of all time in Britain. However, in September, filling stations start selling motor fuel by the litre. Oh, we've lost some. What's happened to me disc there? Let's pop him back in there. Incidentally, these are put into stamp albums. Oh, all right, we'll put that back later. Never mind. Come on, there we go. There's 1981 for you. 82. What's happening in 82? February 1982, the DeLorean car factory in Belfast is put into receivership. In April 82, the Falkland Wars begins as Argentina invades the Falkland Islands. Taking us on to 83. In March, apparently the compact disc goes on sale in the UK. And did you know in April 83 the £1 coin was introduced in England and Wales? Lovely set of discs again there. Okay, moving on to 84. Anyone, I hope that all of you have spotted your birth dates. 1984. Well, best thing, memorable occasion there, it was December. Band Aid's charity single is this year's Christmas #1. 85. What can we say about 85? Apparently in February, EastEnders, the BBC One soap opera set in the fictional borough of Walford, debuts. And in January, British Telecom announced it is going to phase out its iconic red telephone boxes. Nice set of vehicles there. Matchless motorcycle in October. There's some VWs there as well. Okay, moving on to 86. We move on to a brown. Apparently in March, Ford launches a new generation of its best-selling Escort and Orion ranges. And did you know in September, the first episode of the medical drama serial Casualty airs on BBC One? It will still be running on television more than 30 years later. Right, what have we got there? Nice Reliant in June. BSA. I get a lot of people buy the discs for motorcycles in this country and abroad. There seem to be quite a few motorcycles that have gone to America and Japan, so I send them as far as that. Okay, 1987 June, general election sees Margaret Thatcher secure his third term in office as Prime Minister of the UK. Apparently in November, British Rail establishes a world speed record for diesel traction, 148.4 mph, with a test intercity 125 formation beginning Darlington to York. Now, you can also see there's been a change here. October again, if you remember, it was October 77 when we last changed. Now October 87, we've got our next change. And this is getting a bit more security conscious. I want to show you just another disc that I've got from 86. You'll find they were still at it, even though they've managed to put the shadow date beneath it. Somebody done this. They simply just taped them together, chopped them in half, taped them together. So your passing traffic warden, I suppose, would have seen October 86 and not looked at the date underneath. But in fact, it's for February. So he got 8 months text out of that more, or he hoped he would. Okay, so they decided to change it. They didn't change it too drastically, because you can see from the 87 here. They've tried to get more, I think it's with a view to forgeries and things like that. They've tried to make it more complex. And they have actually watermarked it in some way, or if there's embossed print on the top there. Let's just take that one out of there. I don't know if you can catch this on the camera there. I'm hoping you can. The light just catches it, but you'll probably see just underneath the serial number is DVLC, and that's proud across the top there. I can feel it if I rub my finger across the top there. So DVLC stands for Driver Vehicle Licensing Centre. It was later used the DVLA. So DVLC on these discs changed in October, went over to in 1987, and then this from here on, and this is probably my most unfavoured particular style. I don't feel that these show up as much. You go back to the 60s, they were much more prominent, much more easy to see. Now they've got these wavy lines on with DVLC. Doesn't really appear to be so clear to me, much more wishy-washy. What was going on in 88? The Bank of England £1 note ceases to be legal tender. And apparently in June, President Ronald Reagan makes a visit to the UK. 18th of October, Jaguar unveils its new Jaguar XJ220 supercar at the Motor Show. It's set to go into production in 1990, costing £350,000 and being the world's fastest production car with a top speed of 220 miles an hour. And so we move on to 1989. 1989, Ford launches its third generation of its Fiesta. This is in April. The first to offer a 5-door version, which is being built at the Dagenham plant in England and the Valencia plant in Spain. And apparently, those Wallace and Gromit fans amongst you, in November of this year, 89, the first showing of the clay animation film A Grand Day Out, including the characters Wallace and Gromit, at a film festival in Bristol. Vehicles there, anything to note? There's a nice, is that Hackney Dennis? So it could be a coach, 72-seater coach, £107 tax. There we go. If you want to look at the back of one of these discs, you'll see how the wording's changed. Refund of duty. Again, it's pretty much the same message, just written in a different format, that's all. But it's all about, you know, if you want to send the tax disc back to reclaim your money, here's how to do it. 1990. What happened in 1990? Poll tax riots in London as 200,000 people protest. Same time, Vauxhall launches the Calibra, built by Opel in Germany, onto the UK market. And John Major is officially appointed Prime Minister by the Queen as Margaret Thatcher officially tenders her resignation after leaving 10 Downing Street for the last time. Okay, moving on to 1991. And apparently in June of 1991, Kia, the Korean car company, began importing cars into the UK. Come on. For the first time. Initially, it will only import the Pride. November of this year, Freddie Mercury dies at his home in London, just 24 hours after going public with the news that he was suffering from AIDS. And surprise, surprise, in December of that year, Bohemian Rhapsody returns to the top of the British singles charts after 16 years, with the proceeds from the release being donated to the Terence Higgins Trust. Okay, we move on to 1992. May, Nigel Mansell gains the 26th Grand Prix of his racing career, Imola San Marino. He's now the most successful British driver in the Grand Prix races. June, a controversial new biography of Diana, Princess of Wales, Diana, Her True Story, written by Andrew Morton, is published, revealing that she has made 5 suicide attempts following a discovery that the Prince of Wales has resumed an affair with a previous girlfriend, Mrs. Parker Bowles, shortly before Prince William's birth in 1982. Right, on to yet another change. Okay, remember it was 77, 87, now we've got one in 93. And this is not necessarily as a result of me complaining, but we see from this we go on to a very much more significant disc in terms of how it looks. Just going to see if I can move that up a little bit more. Okay, right, 1 to 8, he still did the old style. However, there was a crossover. They actually introduced the new style with a larger format in March. Don't know why they didn't do it January, February. I'm not sure. Don't know where they didn't. So March to December there is the large one. 1 to 8 is the old design. This to me is much clearer. It doesn't put the end of the month on there, but it puts the month and the year. Much easier to see on a car windscreen. Much bolder, definite colours. Easy to see. That's what it's for, really. The whole point of these discs. 1993. What happened in 93? The Ford Mondeo goes on sale. That was in March. And apparently in October, QVC launches the first television shopping channel in the UK. Woohoo! 1994, May, the Channel Tunnel, a 51-kilometre, 32-mile long rail tunnel between the English Channel and the Strait of Dover officially opened. And did you know in May of this year, the Camelot Group Consortium wins the contract to run the UK's first national lottery? Again, a lot of Austins and Fords, some printed, some not. Taking me on to 95 then. We're getting a lot newer now. Lovely colours, green again. Did you know in August, pubs in England are permitted to remain open throughout Sunday afternoon for the first time? I'm sure a lot of you are still celebrating that. September 95, Frank Bruno, the boxer, wins the WBC World Heavyweight Championship. And in November, an interview with HRH, the Princess of Wales, an episode of Panorama, is broadcast on BBC One, in which Diana, Princess of Wales, is interviewed by Martin Bashir. She discusses her adultery, depression and bulimia, her children, the media and the future of the monarchy in candid detail. An estimated 22.78 million watched the broadcast, an all-time record for a UK current affairs programme. And we move on to 1996. You will no doubt see prices of taxes going up as well. What have we got here? Got bikes. Typical 12 months looks as though it costs us £70 for an Austin up there. Whereas we've got a Peugeot there for 135. That's quite a difference, isn't it? That's 70 for 6 months. You'll notice the frequency has gone from 4 months, 12 months. We've now gone 6 months, 12 months. This happened quite a while back, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that. I think it was as far back as 1981 that began to happen. But we're now 6 and 12. But you're still managing to get a disc for every month of the year that's possible to attain. Okay, 1987. What happened in 87? Ford enters the growing compact coupe market with its Puma, which uses the same chassis as the car and the Fiesta. And apparently in July, the Russian car maker Lada announces the end of its imports to the UK after 23 years. And some 350,000 sales of its low-budget, low-specification cars, which at their peak sold more than 30,000 cars a year, but managed just over 6,000 sales last year. Wow. And in August 1997, many people will remember that actually. Reports emerge in the early hours of the morning, this was in August, 31st of August, that Diana, Princess of Wales, has been injured in a car crash in Paris, which has claimed the life of Dodi Fayed, the Harrods heir. Within 4 hours, it is confirmed that Diana has died in hospital as a result of her injuries. The United Kingdom, much of the rest of the world, is plunged into widespread mourning. I'm sure a lot of us remember that year very well indeed. Okay, so we move on to 78. Selection now that's in purple, vivid purple. Apparently, in March 98, the Rolls-Royce Motors brand is acquired by the German car manufacturer BMW. The 15th of June is the first general circularisation issue of the £2 coin with a bimetallic design dated 1997 October. Oh, yeah, sorry. And did you know in December the Ford Focus is voted European Car of the Year? Whoa. Okay, that's 98. Moving on to 99. The euro currency is launched on January, but Britain's Labour government reportedly has no plans to introduce the currency here, preferring to stick to the pound sterling instead. In March 99, comedian Ernie Wise, who formed one half of Morecambe and Wise comedy double from 1941 to 84, dies of a heart attack, aged 73, at Wrexham, Buckinghamshire. Which moves us on to the year 2000 and the millennium bugs, where we thought all the computers would go up in smoke, but it never happened. 1st of January, the millennium celebrations take place throughout the UK. The Millennium Dome in London is officially opened by Her Majesty the Queen. And did you know in April of that year an Enigma machine is stolen for Bletchley Park Museum? August of the same year, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, celebrates her 100th birthday. And I particularly like that disc there, which is the Aston Martin one, 1000. 1000. Unusual to see 00 on a disc. Looks good. Does look good. 2001. What happened in 2001? MG launches a new range MG badge performance variants of its Rover family cars. And did you know in November the film Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is premiered in London? Woohoo! 2002. March. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, dies aged 101. Wow. November. Girls Aloud are formed with 5 female contestants who win the ITV talent show Popstars, The Rivals. 2003. Now we begin to look for a change again as we go into 2003. Of note, in October, the supersonic aircraft Concorde makes its final commercial flight after 27 years. December, the M6 toll motorway opens, giving the UK its first toll motorway and providing a northern bypass for a congested section of the M6 motorway. Now, we move into October, where we've got a new design disc. Now, these discs are very rare discs, as some of them very often are on a changeover. They were not issued in any great numbers. So the famous 5, if you like, from October 03 to February 04, they were all gold digit numbers. From March 04, everything turned gold digit, but these were duplicated in old form, so there's 2 versions of them. You can see the purple one from 04 actually runs 1 to, well, let's have a look on the other side. The old version runs 1 to 8, and then the new version crosses over on the gold version down to the end of the year. The gold, they felt, I think it rubbed off of some of these discs themselves, and they weren't very keen on it. So in 2005, they changed it. They began to phase out these gold digits, and they didn't manage to do it till July. The gold disc went all the way through to July 05, when it then switched over to the black ones, and the black ones started in February. They didn't even start in January. I don't know the reason why. But as I say, it wasn't very clear. It didn't show up very well on the vehicle. The black did. Events-wise, 2005, what was going on? Pictures of Prince Harry wearing a Nazi uniform at a private fancy dress party are published in the newspapers. Right, we're going to move on from there, aren't we? 2006. Elizabeth II celebrates her 80th birthday at Windsor. The Prince of Wales makes a televised address in tribute. Now, you'll notice the printing of some of these. You've still got the post office issued ones. You've got printing now, I think, possibly in several different forms. You've got some from, that's a 6-month one, printed probably from Swansea. Let's see if I can find. It looks as though they were experimenting with different forms of print. You can see some here that are issued for fleets, for DVLA. There's a 6-month one there. So you can see different formats of print in itself. Let's have a look at this one. There you are. 3 different forms of print in itself. 6 months and 12 months respectively. Fleet vehicles. That actually been produced by a light Land Rover. So they were coming from different forms. Okay, you could collect them all if you like. These were produced in very large numbers, so you can still find these around quite easily. 2007. In May, Prince William officially opens the new Wembley Stadium. 1st of July, apparently. Okay. A smoking ban comes into effect in all enclosed places in England. Sorry, May, Prince William officially opens the new Wembley Stadium. July, a smoking ban comes into effect in closed public places in England. There we go. Makes more sense, doesn't it? 2008. You've obviously seen now we've got an alternation of the same colours going on. We've got a pattern going on. Blue, purple, pink, blue. Purple, pink, blue. You see what I mean? So we've got 2008. Let's just show you those a minute. And 2009. And then we move on to 2010, which is the last in this particular book. And I will switch over the books a minute. 2010, what was going on? December 2010, the Royal Navy aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal returns to Portsmouth for the last time before being decommissioned. Wow. Okay, we will move on to 2011. Here we are in 2011. Okay, apparently in April, Prince William, Duke of Cambridge and Catherine Middleton marry in Westminster Abbey. Public holiday is held to celebrate the day, which in conjunction with the May bank holiday makes a 4-day weekend. And the Harry Potter fans amongst you, Part 2 came out in July of this year. The final instalment in the Harry Potter film series is released in UK cinemas. That's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Which moves on to 2012. We're getting near the end of these. In February, the Met Office issues a severe weather warning as heavy snow falls across much of the UK, disrupting road and air travel. Something we've heard before, haven't we? February, Queen Elizabeth II celebrates her Diamond Jubilee, making 60 years on the throne, only the second British monarch to do so. British new car sales reach a post-recession high of 2,040,000, with the Ford Fiesta being Britain's most popular car for the 4th year in a row. And the success of Nissan's British-built Qashqai crossover vehicle continues with more than 45,000 sales, making it Britain's 6th most popular new car. On to 2013. You will also see the gold has come back into it's all security issues that we've done with these discs as well. Silver on the 2013. There was a very interesting disc produced in March of 2013, which was an error disc, which I might show you in another video. They actually produced a disc that expired on the 30th of the 3rd 13, sent it out to a lot of people, and then they had to recall it. They sent them out a letter saying, oops, sorry, we made an error, could you please destroy the disc or send it back to us? Needless to say, not everybody sent it back, so some remain out there. So if you've got a 300313, let us know. Okay, I can't actually, well, there are some other error discs. We're going back to 1954 to find error discs then. So 30th of the 3rd 13 is pretty unusual to make an error. This was the year in July Andy Murray wins the men's singles at Wimbledon, defeating Novak Djokovic of Serbia in straight sets. Murray becomes the first British man to win Wimbledon since Fred Perry in 1936. And we're on to 2014, when a lot of people felt this was when tax discs finished, and they very often put them up. That's not going to stay there, is it? It's not when it's. They very often put them up for sale for exorbitant prices. Many people felt that if they had a disc for certainly August 14, that it was the last tax disc ever issued. It wasn't. In fact, as you'll see in a moment, it went on a lot later than that. This was a ridiculous time in terms of trying to sell tax discs. There were literally discs going up for thousands and thousands of pounds. It was absurd because people just didn't know what they were selling. They had no idea how many of these discs were in circulation, and it was millions. But sometimes they thought, well, I'll just ask $1 million for this disc. They just didn't have a clue. Okay, 2014. What happened in 14? More severe weather warnings. Is that, let's say that, no, that's wrong. 2014, Prince Harry launches the Invictus Games, a Paralympic style sporting championship for wounded soldiers. 23rd of November, Britain's Lewis Hamilton wins the 2014 Formula One world title after finishing first in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Well. Okay, the last year of the tax disc, which is 2015. A sad time, a very, very sad time. It goes on to August. There are millions of these. There are not too many Septembers. These are pretty rare, okay? You could get these. These were issued, I believe, up until the 30th of September 2014. So if you've got one that's got a post office stamp 30th of September 14, then it's the last day that the post office issued them. These were obviously issued by the DVLA. Indeed, the last one you see in it's Salvage there. These, just as a bye-bye, were vehicle licensing stamps that you could buy with a view of putting money towards your tax disc. I'm not sure of the dates when they were first issued and phased out. So there is your sad demise of the 2015 tax disc. Apparently, in March 2015, TV presenter Jeremy Clarkson is suspended from Top Gear. one of the BBC's most popular and profitable shows after a fracas with the producer. The remainder of the series will be scrapped, the BBC says. As I say, quite a sad occasion. It's reported that the government is losing millions in revenue with the scrapping of the tax disc itself. It's no longer needed to be shown on the front of the windscreen because they say we can just as easily trace it online. It seems to have been the view that people can just defraud it now. They will just take the risk. So whether the tax disc will ever be introduced again, who knows? But it was easy with it being on full public display for people to police the system for the police as well. In other words, just give this car parked outside my house isn't taxed. I know they can still do that online, but it's a bit more of a pain. This is a visually obvious. And it was always nice to get something for actually paying your tax. You paid a lot of money for your tax, and this was the only thing you got that was a keepsake as a result of that. And many people kept them and passed them on with the selling of their car just to prove that they were legal more than anything. And a lot of people use these as documented history of classic cars. What happened when these began to run out is that they started producing them on A4 pieces of paper. And these came out for a while. I'll hold that a bit higher so you can see that properly. These weren't produced for they were actually produced for every month of 2015 up until September. Quite hard to find, really easy to forge because anyone can photocopy them. There is actually some writing on the back that lines up with it. But these were produced and just sent out in the post to people for a while. Okay, that concludes the little run from 1961 to 2015. Please like and subscribe. There will be later videos about the birth of the tax disc, if you like, through from 1921 right through to the start of this video, which will be 1961. So please look out for that one. Thank you very much indeed. Bye for now.